Holy Shit, The Gospel of Grease and Grit. Written by Matt Lashway, narrated by Millian Quinteros. Welcome to Holy Shit, The Gospel of Grease and Grit, written by Matt Lashway. This isn't your grandma's gospel. It's a hymn sung with whiskey breath, broken dreams, and a stubborn kind of hope. In Possumville, you'll find saints at the bottom of shot glasses, preachers in grease-stained aprons, and salvation somewhere between the jukebox and the grill. So pull up a stool, grab a drink, and settle in, because out here, the floor's sticky, the prayers are messy, and sometimes the holiest ground is covered in nacho cheese. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Gospel According to Grease. I was holy once. At least, that's what they said. With a Bible in my hand and a prayer by my bed. She was my Sunday, my sermon, my song. But cancer? Cancer don't care if your faith is strong. I met Samantha when I was just 20. Young, dumb, preaching fire and brimstone with a tight gospel drum. She walked in with grace and that lipstick smile. Made every Bible verse worth a while. Samantha smiled like salvation wrapped in curls. She softened the rough in this hard-ass world. But life ain't fair. Bodies break down. She had a heart too kind for this mean-ass town. Doctor said she couldn't carry a child. Something with her blood, too fragile, too wild. But that was okay. I meant what I said. Every kid in my pews got tucked in and fed. I baptized them, taught them, called them my own. Their scraped-up knees felt like flesh and bone. We never had a baby, but we had a flock. And love ain't measured by some goddamn clock. And when she was taken, I broke at the seams. Found comfort in bourbon and barroom dreams. Now I'm 72, give or take a few sins. Still flipping burgers and chasing my whims. Ain't got much hair, but plenty of tails. Like how grief rides harder than any backroad trails. I left the pulpit, the choir, the pew. Traded my robe for a flannel and brew. The gizzard hole took me, grease-stained and spent. Where forgiveness came cheap and the rent wasn't meant. Now I preach in a kitchen, flippin' damn meat. With Brenda twerking to a backbeat beat. Dan the Ham's yelling riddles with flair. Jesus once came in and ran from her glare. My altar's a counter, my Bible's a shot. My prayers are whispered when the griddle gets hot. They say I'm a dropout, a drunk, a disgrace. But I found the gospel in this God-forsaken place. There's truth in the chaos, in nachos and sin. In the way broken people let healing begin. We laugh, we cry, we drink, we dance. Give some second chances a second damn chance. I still tell her goodnight by the register light. Still see her in dreams when the whiskey hits right. But I ain't ashamed of the man I became. I'm just preaching with grease and a flickering flame. So if you feel lost and the saints slam the door, come find your faith on this dive bar floor, where we kneel on stools, not rugs of red, and raise our glasses to the love and the dead. Chapter 2. Billy the Blasphemous Booty Caller. I was wiping down the grill one night, prayers on my lips, grease on my hands, when the door slammed open and in came a Taco Bell hurricane, wearing no flip-flops, no shame, and a shirt stained with sin and nacho cheese. "Y'all do confessions?" he said, "or just appetizers?" I didn't look up. "Depends. How deep's your sin?" He grinned that crooked holy grin. "Let's just say I once baptized the stripper in ranch." I paused. For the first time in years, I laughed. And just like that, Billy was baptized. Not in water, but in chaos, fries, and fireball. Billy showed up in a Taco Bell shirt, with stains on his jeans and a laugh full of dirt. He claimed he once dated a girl named Grace, but she left after he licked salsa off her face. He drank like a prophet, fucked like a storm, slept on the pool table, keeping it warm. Once bet his pants in a trivia game. Now he freeballs life and forgets his name. He FaceTimed his toe by mistake one night. Sent it to Trudy the Thick in neon light. "Who the fuck did I just call?" he cried, as Brenda twerked past with ketchup applied. Tried to tip the bartender with a coupon code. Got slapped so hard he dropped his chode. Still he winked and raised the glass. Said, "Applebee's never had this much ass." He once kissed Carl in a spin the bottle round, then baptized the urinal with a holy sound. Tried to hump a keg and bless the foam. Said, "This must be what heaven feels like. Home." Billy got cuffed with his pants mid-slide, still yelling, "Clue!" like it was a joyride. Said he was sober, just possessed by gin, and asked if the cop liked tacos and sin. Underneath that wild-ass grin was a man who knew shame but dove back in. He lost his job, his shoes, his cat, but never the chance to wear chaos like a hat. And when the preacher says grace behind the bar, Billy's the first to raise his PBR. 'Cause grace ain't clean and life ain't neat. It's a drunk old fool dancing barefoot to a beat. So when life's gone sideways and you're out of luck, remember Billy, drunk, damned, and stuck. He might not be holy, might never be right, but he'll cheer your fall and toast your fight. Chapter 3. Dan the Ham and Carl the Clue Hollerin' Heartbreak. They say the Lord works in mysterious ways. At the Gizzard Hole, he works through glitter, fireball, and a man named Dan the Ham. He strutted in on a Tuesday night, glittered nipples, crop top tight, Crocs in full sport mode, mic in hand, and sass levels higher than a church organ stand. "Trivia's the sermon, sinners," he cried, with a wig half-styled and thighs bona fide. He poured tequila on a bingo card, yelled, "Name 3 sins sexier than Brenda's lard." Folks shouted guesses, greed, lust, twerking. Dan just winked and kept on smirking. "Tonight's first round is things that moan," he said, while Brenda groaned and tossed her phone. With a mic in one hand and sass in the other, he made drunk strangers dry hump each other. Wrong answer? Take a shot. Right one? Here's a sticker that says, "Hot." He once kissed a priest and a mime on a dare, then baptized them both in nacho despair. Wore eyeliner thick and sprayed his pits. Crowd surfed naked during Tuesday Blitz. Dan was a prophet of poorly made plans, a riddle-slinging rebel with glittered-up hands. He spoke in riddles, rhymes, and shrieks, gave out hugs, handjobs, and trivia tweaks. But beneath all the sass and hot mess cheer was a heart that stayed late to wipe down beer. He'd mop the floor when the night was done, whispering blessings to everyone. The Gizzard Hole soul with a bedazzled mic stand, part circus, part sermon, all Dan the Ham. Then there's Carl, louder than God with a megaphone. He busted in once wearing boxers in pride, tattoo of Elvis on his left ass side. Screamed, "Clue!" during a pantless spin. Said, "My ex-wife invented sex just to make me sin." Carl debated a priest on the shape of the sun, peed on the jukebox, then called it fun. Danced on the bar in a bridemaid's dress, proposed to Brenda in a pile of nacho mess. He drinks PBR like it's sacred and fine, keeps a flask in the gap where he lost the front line. He don't pray, but Lord does he yell, "Clue!" like it's gospel and Taco Bell. Carl's a mess, a meltdown, a mood, Part genius, part idiot, all attitude. But if your life feels dumb and your pants won't stay, channel Carl and scream, "Clue!" your way. Chapter 4, Trudy the Thick, the Gospel of Grit and Girdles. Trudy the Thick don't come around much now. Not since her hips started predicting the weather, and the preacher stopped wearing collars. But every so often, when the moon's crooked and the nachos call her name, she wheels in like a prophecy in pearls. She's 93 now, wig big enough to host a gospel choir, lips painted like war, and a purse that clinks louder than the jukebox. I met Trudy when I was 10 and skinny, before my voice cracked and my faith did too. She taught Sunday school like it was boot camp, cussed in whispers and smoked menthols in the church kitchen, said Jesus was a man's man, but wouldn't have judged me for crying when Samantha died. She don't drink much now, just Fireball for arthritis. Says the cinnamon helps her remember what she came into the bar to forget. She once danced in Vegas, or maybe it was Reno. Stories shift like her stockings. But one thing never changes. She loved hard, sinned harder, and always tipped the strippers better than the deacons. She once married a man named Chuck, but left him for a taco truck and a saxophone player named Lem. Still keeps a photo of Lem in her bra, right next to a half-used punch card from the bingo hall and a taser shaped like a crucifix. Trudy's the only person alive who ever made Brenda blush. She once told her, "Girl, you got rhythm but no soul. Come back when your heels are higher than your standards." She watches from the bar now from her favorite corner booth, wrapped in a leopard print blanket with her ankles crossed like royalty. She don't say much, but when she does, the whole damn bar goes quiet. Even Carl, even Dan, even Billy, if he ain't in handcuffs. One night she took my hand, cold and soft like a hymn book page, and said, "Matthew, grief is a sneaky bitch, but you outlived your guilt. Now outlive your fear." She don't preach, she don't pray, she don't remember what day it is. But Trudy remembers me, remembers Samantha, remembers the boy who believed in heaven before he found it in a grill. So when you think you're too old, too broken, too used up to matter, remember Trudy, who still wears heels in her sleep and once told God to wait outside while she finished her drink. Chapter 5, Rachel the City Slicker. Rachel strutted into the gizzard hole with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. Her heels clicked loudly against the stained linoleum, demanding attention from every corner of the room. Rachel was 26 years old, just 2 years out of college, armed with a bachelor's degree and an attitude twice her age. She came from a town about 5 hours away, but everything about her screamed East Side, not the gritty, grease-stained West Side of Possumville. It was all too polished, too practiced, like she belonged where lattes were custom and lawns had rules. Eyes followed her. A curious, amused, and slightly annoyed mixture of gazes as she adjusted the bright blue titchel wrapped nearly around her styled hair. She had started life as a Christian, her parents dragging her reluctantly to Sunday sermons, but later embraced Judaism, partly from genuine curiosity, partly to rebel against her strict upbringing. The only reason Rachel had a degree in journalism was because she dropped out of law school after failing the bar exam not once, but twice. Still, she walked like she had a gavel in her purse and a courtroom in her pocket, convinced she was smarter than everyone in the room. She thought she was untouchable, invincible, ready to kick everyone's ass just because she read half a casebook and paid too much for a degree she didn't earn. By 3 a.m., the booze was running low and the tension was running high. Rachel had pushed every last button in the bar. That's when Brenda stood up, heels off and hair tied back, and stormed over. "Get this bitch out of here," Brenda hollered, already on the phone with the cops. "Ain't nobody want her in this bar no more. She's bringing the whole damn place down." Before Rachel could respond with another condescending quip, Brenda's fist did the talking. Clean, loud, and straight to the jaw. The crowd didn't gasp. They cheered. Because in West Possumville, sometimes respect had to be served knuckle style. The gizzard hole had plenty of sinners, but Rachel, it seemed, had come to give sin itself a lesson or two, and learned one of her own instead. Just as Brenda sat back down, still shaking her knuckles out, the door creaked open and in walked Michael, the town sheriff. Not the Michael from trivia night with the questionable toe photos. This Michael wore a badge, boots, and a scowl that said he'd seen enough gizzard hole drama to last 3 lifetimes. He took one look at the scene, raised an eyebrow and muttered, "Y'all really couldn't wait till morning, huh?" Brenda pointed at Rachel, still sprawled near the bar. "Handle it, Sheriff. She's done stirred up more mess in one night than a raccoon in a chicken coop." Michael sighed, pulled out his notepad and said, "All right then, guess we're doing this the Possumville way." And just like that, the next chapter of trouble walked in wearing a tin star. Chapter 6. Michael, the sheriff with a notepad and a nerve of steel. Michael didn't become sheriff for the glory. Hell, there wasn't any. Just a rusted badge, a stack of unsorted paperwork, and a town full of lovable disasters who treated the law like a suggestion printed on a shot glass. For 15 years, Possumville had been his beat, and for 15 years, the gizzard hole had been his personal hell. He'd broken up conga lines made of naked seniors, pulled Carl off rooftops and out of freezers, once had to tase a guy named Billy for trying to exorcise the nacho machine. But the night Rachel showed up, that was the night the gizzard hole earned its damn name. She strutted in with heels high and higher opinions, click-clacking like the floors owed her rent, with a glare sharp enough to slice a prayer in half, and an ego that couldn't fit through the bar's bathroom stall. She came in hot, bragging about her failed law degree, her East Side apartment, and how she was spiritually superior because she drank matcha and argued on Twitter. By 3 a.m., she'd insulted Brenda, called Dan flamboyant debris, accused Carl of mansplaining thermodynamics, and tried to sue Ryko for breathing near her. The gizzard hole was one insult away from becoming a crime scene. That's when Brenda stood up, barefoot and fed up, hair pulled back like a hometown executioner. And before Rachel could deliver one more condescending sigh, boom! Brenda's fist did the talking. Clean hit straight to the jaw. Rachel dropped like a sack of hummus and hubris. No one gasped. The crowd cheered. Even Dan rang the trivia bell. Because in Possumville, respect sometimes came knuckle style. Michael arrived right on cue, boots stomping through puddles of spilled fireball and old shame. He stepped over Rachel's sprawled body, took one long look around, and sighed a sigh that could have filed its own restraining order. 15 years on this job, he said flatly. And this is the worst goddamn night I've ever seen at the gizzard hole. He wasn't exaggerating. And this was a man who once saw Billy hump a keg and call it a spiritual awakening. Brenda pointed at the body on the floor. She's bringing the whole damn place down, Sheriff. Michael pulled out his notepad, his true weapon. Inside were pages titled Tuesday Chaos, Unsolved Twerks, and one specifically for Carl labeled Ongoing Concerns. He didn't yell, didn't even raise his voice, just scribbled something down, nodded toward Ryko, who was leaning by the jukebox chewing tobacco, and said, "All right then, guess we're doing this the Possumville way." He didn't cuff Rachel, didn't file charges, just dragged the night to a quiet, smoky close, like a man trying to put out a grease fire with an old hymn. Later, when the chaos died down, Michael sat at the bar beside Matthew, nursed a bourbon-laced coffee and muttered, She's gonna sue us, ain't she? Matthew chuckled. Nah, her ego's too bruised to file paperwork. They clinked glasses and said nothing else, because in Possumville, silence was the closest thing to peace. 3 hours later, Rachel stirred on the floor, one eyelash stuck to the bar mat. Carl's jacket draped over her like a flag of surrender. She sat up, holding her jaw, eyes wide with disbelief. Y'all are fucking crazy, she groaned. I'm going the fuck back home where I belong, where people are just like me. Fuck, I've never been hit so hard in my life. Nobody apologized. Brenda didn't even look up. Dan tossed her a bag of frozen peas and a sticker that said, hot. Carl offered her a PBR and said, you'll heal faster if you scream clue. Rachel left the bar with a limp, a lesson, and a face full of humble pie. And Michael? He just sipped his coffee and whispered, another chapter's closed. Because the gizzard hole wasn't a bar, it was a living gospel, written in grease, glitter, and grace. And Michael was the sheriff who made sure the story didn't end too early. Chapter 7. Ashes, Leaves, and Whiskey Light. Thursday came soft, like a hymn hummed through cracked lips. The leaves had already given up. Bare trees lined the dirt road like skeletal ushers, pointing the way to the little white church just outside Possumville. The same church Matthew once preached in, long before the gizzard hole became his altar and bourbon became his choir. They buried him on a hill that overlooked both, God's house and the grease-stained dive bar that saved his soul. Dan the Ham wore black glitter and eyeliner streaked by tears. Carl shouted, "Clue!" during the eulogy, and blamed the outburst on grief, tequila, and divine interruption. Brenda stood beside little Rev, now 20, no longer a child, but a young man with his mother's stubborn strength and Matthew's fire in his voice. Rachel returned too, older, steadier. 2 years ago, she came to the gizzard hole lost and angry. She left with a little more hope and a lot more questions. Now, standing in the back of the church in a fall-colored scarf, she knew. She didn't need all the answers, just a place to be honest. Matthew gave her that. He gave that to everyone. Trudy should have been there. She would have been 96 this past Tuesday, but she'd passed a year and a half before in her sleep, surrounded by glitter, bingo cards, and a half-smoked joint. Her gravestone stood loud and proud. Trudy the Thick, still twerking in heaven, probably banned again by now. Brenda, now 55 and seasoned like a cast-iron skillet, knelt by Trudy's name, then turned to the fresh stone beside it. Matthew Gladstone, grease-stained but glorified, still preaching. No choir sang, no organ played. But little Rev stepped forward, napkin in hand, the last words Matthew ever wrote down. God ain't picky. He'll take your pain, your piss, your praise, so long as it's honest. He don't need perfect, just present. Dan passed out Fireball in tiny communion cups. Carl toasted with a chicken wing. Rachel wept, but it was the kind of weeping that cleans more than it breaks. And Brenda? She leaned down to her son and whispered, "You ready to go home, Rev?" He nodded. "Yeah, Mama, we got sermons to write and burgers to flip." They walked away slowly toward the fading orange sky, toward the gizzard hole glowing in the distance like a crooked halo. Brenda with her heart scarred but beating strong. Little Rev with gospel in his bones and a spatula in his back pocket. The gizzard hole had lost its preacher, but it had found its purpose. A sanctuary not of stained glass, but of spilled drinks, second chances, and loud as hell love. Because the gospel, this gospel, was never meant to be polished. It was meant to be lived. Note from the author. If you've made it this far, you've met the saints and sinners of Possumville. You've danced with Brenda, screamed with Carl, mourned with Rachel, laughed with Dan, and maybe even found a bit of Trudy's wild left behind. But this wasn't just Matthew's story. It was everybody's, and it doesn't end here. Because grace doesn't end with a gravestone. It cooks on, stirs on, drinks on, and sings on. In every dive bar and broken home where someone dares to believe they're not too far gone. So raise a glass, flip a burger, whisper a prayer if you got one, and remember, even the greasiest hole in the wall can be holy ground. This has been Holy Shit, the Gospel of Grease and Grit, written by Matt Lashway, narrated by Millian Quinteros.